Hello to my friends on Patreon. This is a video continuing the series which we've been doing, interviews with the pros, and a chance opportunity to do an interview with a guy I really respect, Mr. Phil Doleman. I basically just wanted to put him in a corner, and he agreed to do it. Probably going to cost me a pint or two, but anyway, absolutely delighted to have Phil Doleman.
Hello, Peter.
Hello, mate. So a lot of people have seen you play the uke. I've known you for years, but what I'd like to do is perhaps take you right back to where you started.
Yeah.
What influenced you? What got you to a ukulele?
I'd played guitar and bass since the age of about 15, 16. And it was when I had my first daughter. So she's coming on 17 now. And I took her to a little group at a local library where we were going to have music, and it turned out to be CDs. And I said, I should bring my guitar along and we'll get some little percussion instruments for the little kids.
Right.
And we'll do live music. And it was great, but I realised I couldn't carry a guitar and a pushchair and change bags and all that sort of thing.
Makes sense.
So I bought a little ukulele because I could stick it under the pushchair. I thought that'd be great for nursery rhymes with the kids. And then gradually I started to discover other people who were playing the uke, and they would put me onto people like Cliff Edwards and Roy Smeck, people like that. And I started to realise there was a lot more to this instrument than I'd previously thought. Not really being aware of it, other than the obvious George Formby associations that most people have. And yeah, it rapidly became the thing I did. And shortly after that, I bumped into Ian Emerson, and at the time we were trying to form a big ukulele group, but nobody played the ukulele, so we put adverts up, and it was me and him.
Yeah.
And so we ended up touring that as a duo for 6-7 years.
That was the re-entrance.
The re-entrance, yes,
Right.
which was,
Yeah.
we both had a history in rock covers bands, but we felt we were getting a little bit old for it. So we thought, what if we could do it ironically? So we did all the stuff we used to do in the rock covers bands, the foot on the monitor and things like that.
Yeah.
But because we were two middle-aged balding men doing it on ukuleles, we could get away with it because it was a joke.
Brilliant.
And we had great fun with that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So give me an idea of the sort of tunes you'd be playing. And
Oh, we did things like Ace of Spades,
No way.
Highway to Hell.
Really?
A lot of really heavy rock stuff interspersed with Kylie and Britney Spears and silly things like that. Oh, there's loads of it on YouTube. It's still all there on YouTube. Yeah, you'll find it all over the place.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was very good for us. And we bumped into a band called the Lancashire Hot Pots, who asked us to be their tour support. And we did that for 4 years, which meant they suddenly took us out of pubs to playing 800,000 seat theatres, and suddenly from that our reputation grew, and at about that time people were starting to do ukulele festivals,
Right.
like we're at now, and they needed people to book, and so they booked me and Ian.
Wow.
That was the beginning of my sort of late blooming career as a ukulele player.
Right. So you mentioned Ukulele Ike and Roy Schmeck. For the people that know you, you're a definite blues man. You know, there's definite roots there, and I've seen you play various styles and things. Is there anybody in the blues sort of era that really got you?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious things like Robert Johnson. I think, everybody is into that. But I quite like the stuff that isn't necessarily the straight ahead blues. So things that are a little bit more what might be described as hokum blues or swing blues, or things like jug band music.
Yeah.
Those sort of things are really the more quirky things that I quite like. So big fan of Barbecue Bob, for example. And a lot of people have come across Barbecue Bob, but fantastic performer, and quirky little songs that you don't hear anybody else play. And I've actually discovered quite a lot of those through other ukulele players.
Yeah.
And there were some ukulele players back in the day.
Yeah.
Original bluesmen who were uke players.
Right. I mean, last night I arrived here quite late, but you were onto I think your second encore, and you were doing No Lead in My Pencil Anymore or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's a Bo Carter tune. Yeah, Bo Carter was a member of the Mississippi Shakes, who were a great, in the 1920s we're talking here, great string band that wrote these beautiful almost, they weren't really blues, they weren't really country blues, they were just beautiful songs. But Bo Carter in that band had a sideline as a solo act of filth, basically.
Right.
And there is a great album, you can find it on Amazon and places like that, called Banana in Your Fruit Basket, which is now hit. Yeah, I always say My Pencil Won't Write No More is his second filthiest song.
Right.
Can I Put My Banana in Your Fruit Basket is his filthiest song. But there's an album full of them, and they're all essentially the same idea.
Yeah.
There's nothing actually rude about what he's singing.
It's
all in
tongue-in-cheek,
here.
isn't it? That's
You know,
right,
yeah.
I mean, could you throw a couple of verses and a chorus at me? Just
My Pencil Won't Write No More, absolutely, yeah. I'll take the picks off and we can... Yeah, it's all the same idea of the setup and the payoff, like a lot of these songs. So, well, listen here, folks, there's one thing sure. My pencil won't write no more because the lead's all gone. That's your bit.
the lead's all gone.
Well, the lead's all gone. The lead's all gone and my pencil won't write no more. That kind of thing.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, there's some great songs like that.
Yeah.
And they're often very simple songs.
That's it.
So I teach them a lot in workshops because they're great fun and they're not necessarily pop songs. Because a lot of the problems with teaching pop songs, unless you're teaching absolute classic, I know you do some Beatles stuff, which is great because, you know, teaching classic pop songs is perfect. But anything other than that, your audience might not, some will know it, some won't know it, some will like it, some won't. But if you teach something they maybe never heard before, and it's fun and it's achievable because it's not got that many chords in it, you can really have fun with it.
Right, right. I'd like to ask you a little bit more about your sort of friendship with Del Rey and her influence on your playing as well, because I know you're a big fan.
Absolutely, yes. The days when you used to go to a music shop and buy a VHS cassette lesson from your favourite guitarist or whatever, and I had a few of those, and I became aware of one by Bob Brosman, which I bought, and another one by Del Rey called Blue Uke.
Right.
And I'd only just got my first ukulele, and to be honest, it was all completely over my head. But I knew it was the music I loved. And so as I got more and more into it, of course, Del, great resonator guitar player, great resonator ukulele player, which is why I play resonator ukuleles. She plays with finger picks, which is why I do a lot of playing with banjo picks. Really, an awful lot of what I do is based on what I learned from her. But thanks to the wonderful world of the ukulele, which you never expect to happen, is you find yourself playing at a festival. And Del Rey is playing at that festival. And you end up and you're on stage playing a song with this person
Isn't that great?
that you've learnt from one of their videos years ago. And you think, wow, how on earth did that happen? And yeah, we got on like a house on fire. So whenever she's in the country, if we can do a gig together, we'll do a gig together.
Isn't that great?
And she's absolutely fabulous. So if anybody doesn't know Del Rey, do yourselves a favour and look up Del Rey. She's amazing.
Definitely. So lately, what have you been doing? What's your latest projects you've been involved in?
Right. Well, this year I did an album of originals early on in the year called Keep Drinking That Coffee, where I wanted to do another album. But the problem is a lot of the stuff when you're recording tunes, even very old tunes, a lot of them are still under copyright. And it starts to become a very expensive thing to make an album where you've got to pay licensing and things like that. And also, it all started with whiskey, as it often does. A distillery opened right down the road from me, and I live in the Midlands. You don't get many distilleries in the Midlands. A distillery opened, and I was doing a jug band workshop, and part of the workshop was a challenge for the students to write a song using the format we'd learned in the workshop. So I thought I'd better write one so that I've got one. And that's when I saw the distillery open, so I wrote a silly jug band song called Whiskey in My Bottle. And I went to the distillery and made a video for it at the distillery. And you can find that on YouTube, which is great fun. I got the tour all to myself. And I thought, well, that's a nice thing to have done. And then another song snuck out. And then the next thing I know, I had about 7. And I thought, well, if I can find 3 more, I've got an album. And so I put that together as kind of a non-uke album. So there's uke on every track, but there's also other instruments that I play. So there's a lot of 5-string banjo and tenor banjo and guitar and steel guitar on there. And then shortly after that, I realised that people wanted a disc that was what I sound like on stage. And that album isn't that at all. It sounds like you'd have an 8-piece band. So I did a little EP of those kind of cheeky songs. It's got things like, it's called Hot Nuts because it's got the great Get 'Em From the Peanut Man song where you get the audience to shout nuts back at you. Yeah. It's a lovely song. So I did a little EP live into one microphone just so that I could have something to say, this is what you get on stage. And then more recently, brilliantly, my old mucker Ian, who was half of the re-entrants, and we played all sorts of stuff together, but he hadn't been so well lately. We got back together and we recorded 2 tracks. Rather wonderfully, it all clicked. So of the tracks we recorded, the 2 tracks we recorded, that was a total of 3 takes.
Right.
One's the first take and the other one's the second take of the other song. So yeah, 3 takes. We started at 11. We recorded a song, then we had some lunch. Then we recorded another song, then we had a cup of tea. Then we mastered both of the tracks because I do it all on my own laptop. Yeah. And there's nothing to mix because it's one mic in glorious mono as we've recorded it. Yeah. And we also set a camera going. Yeah. And so by 4 o'clock, we had 2 videos uploaded to YouTube and 2 tracks mastered and for sale on Bandcamp. Wow. Which is the wonder of modern technology.
So how do people find your YouTube site? Is it literally your name, Phil Doleman Ukulele?
Well, the best thing to do is to go to phildolman.co.uk and you'll find a videos page on there with loads of my videos. And if you click through on any of those, that'll take you to all the rest of my videos.
Fantastic.
And everything I do is linked to from that website.
So the videos, the CDs, and everything. Everything.
Yeah, and the books and the Patreon. Yes.
Oh, tell me about the books.
Oh well,
this was something you started about 18 months ago, was it? And it just took the ukulele scene by storm. Didn't
you would have thought, but it's 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, it's scary. Wow. I couldn't believe it as well. But 3 years ago, some people asked me in workshops. Lots of people asked me. I teach a lot of theory. But not very heavy theory, just teaching people how songs function so they can play by ear. And people kept saying, I want to learn more about this. Is there a good music theory book you can recommend that doesn't involve me going back to school and learning to play the piano and learning to read music? And there wasn't. So I spent the summer writing one and I had 100 copies printed up myself, which it sounds like a real sob story, but it was literally the last money I had. And the car had broken down and that was it. I thought, this is a punt. I sat down with my wife, had a glass of wine and pressed the button to launch it just on my website. No advertising other than my Facebook page. And my phone just went ping, 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 ping. And I had 100 copies and I sold 200. Wow. I had to get on the phone the next morning to the printers and say, send more.
Yes.
It's currently on just shy of 1,500 copies.
No way.
In 3 years.
Wow.
And it's only available through me and a few shops that buy a small number off me. So places like World of Ukes have it, and Unique Ukes are going to take some. Right. And the Uke Room down in Ross and White have them.
Right.
And then I did another one a year after that, which was 10 blues songs and transcriptions of old blues songs I play. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I released one that's alternative tunings for the uke, because I do a lot of that on the banjo. And it's great fun to try tuning to different things. You get different patterns. Play claw hammer, play slide, things like that. So they're a big part of how I earn my living now. The books that I sell at festivals and things like that. Right. More so than CDs, most likely.
Right. Yeah. Also on the tutoring side, you have your own Patreon site. Could you tell us a bit about that? What sort of market you're trying to get to? What sort of people you think would benefit from that?
Yeah. I'm focusing on doing American folk styles. Yeah. So really, it's blues. I have different themes. So I have a blues theme, a jug band theme, and then there's I do a theory one as well, and then a whole bunch of ones called just 3 chords, where people will learn a whole bunch of songs that you can play with 3 chords. But what I try and do is I try and teach which 3 chords, why these 3 chords, can we play it in a different key? Yeah. Is it like another song we've learned? So I really try and focus on how the song functions and to develop people's ear. But yes, I'm focusing on the music that I play, the music that I love, which is American music from the folk tradition and early jazz. Yeah.
Well, Phil, I'm delighted you've taken the time to do this interview. A lot of people know you as a player and performer, but not the backstory. So thanks for doing that.
Absolute pleasure.
It's always a pleasure meeting up with you at festivals And I mean, we've just been everywhere, haven't we? Really?
We have. Oh yes, we
So
have.
we just keep turning up.
Yeah.
I remember one time we were going to the Isle of Wight festival, and we were on a ferry.
Yes.
And we were on different cars, obviously, and we thought, well, we'll all meet up in the lounge. There was a bar there,
Yeah.
and there was a guy from the back who looked identical to you, and almost did the old slap on the head,
Yeah.
And at the last minute, for why I don't know, I didn't do it, and thank goodness, because it wasn't you.
It wasn't me. And also that one, you'd driven from your home and I'd driven from my home, and it had been snowing and it was terrible
right.
weather, and you line up in the lines for the ferry,
Yeah.
and I drove in one, and you drove in the next lane next to me, and the window. So how did that happen?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Meant to happen.
Fate.
Yeah. While you've got your picks on your fingers, I wonder if you could just play us out with a little something, Phil.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cheers.
All my life I've been a traveling man. All my life I've been a traveling man. Staying alone and doing the best I can. Ship my trunk down to Tennessee. Ship my trunk down to Tennessee. Hard to tell about a man like me. I met a girl, I couldn't get her off my mind. I met a girl, I couldn't get her off my mind. She passed me up saying she didn't like my kind.
Phil Doleman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.